bringing you the news and information you need from the people making a difference. This is Comcast Newsmakers.
Okay, so where did the cell phone come from? And what about the history of cosmetics? Well, all these answers and much more are found at the nation's leading business and history library. Hello again, and thanks for joining us. I'm Carla Showell-Lee, and you're watching Comcast Newsmakers. Joining me in the studio this hour is Terry Snyder. She's the Deputy Director of Library Administration for the Hagley Museum and Library. And today we're talking about their upcoming events. Thanks for joining us today. Nice to see you, Terry.
Likewise.
I think my cell phone needs a battery in the back.
I can't help you with that. I can tell you the history.
Oh, you can tell me the history. I got it. I love it. Well, you know, the things that we take for granted, we never think about how does it come about, you know? And it's so interesting that there's a library that actually gives you an answer.
That's right. We are the nation's premier research library on the history of business and technology, and we document essentially our current lives. I mean, how did our consumer society come about? And we start as early as the 1700s. We see how the nation becomes sort of a producing economy, such as, you know, iron, railroad, steam. But then as we begin to become a consumer society, all of the artifacts and objects that fill our lives, like the cell phone, television, radio, all the major electronics, but also our consumer goods, our clothes, our fashions, our kitchen appliances.
And I was talking about the history of cosmetics. They think we look this good every day without it, right? It's the truth. You know, come on.
We need a lot of help.
Oh, you know, I don't know. You can see me in the morning. And so, you know, when we get to this point of, you know, as consumers and we look up the information on in this library, how do you help us?
Well, researchers come in and, you know, they have a question about something, and it's usually very specific. And we help people from the scholar who wants to ask a very broad question around a cultural theory to a regular consumer or a person off the street who has an interest in a particular topic. So we have people come in that dialogue with the researchers who basically steer people to the collections we have. We have 36,000 linear feet of manuscripts and archives. That's 6 miles worth of material.
Wow.
We have 225,000 titles, books, and rare trade catalogs that really, trade catalogs would be like a mail order catalog that comes to you now. They used to go directly to retailers, and they would work with customers to order things. But that's how we find out a lot of history around any given product. So it basically points us to a heritage. Things like Strawbridge and Clothier, which is a department store that used to be prevalent around this area, we have their records. So anything that really documents consumerism, consumer goods, and our everyday lives, we can really help people understand that. And
you have wonderful events throughout the year, of course, that draw a lot of people in. I know you have a lecture coming up soon.
We do. We have a lecture series each fall, and so I encourage people to check our website for upcoming lectures. We had one on fake leather, faux leather. It was called Faux Real. That was very interesting. And another one that's coming up on war letters and documenting the war experiences of soldiers writing home throughout time. And one that's coming up on November 15th, which is a book by Wendy Gamber, who wrote on the boarding house experience. So people who, not everybody was able to live in their in a regular single dwelling house. Some people actually lived in a cooperative arrangement through boarding houses. So Wendy, who did her research here, looking at actually some of the DuPonts that traveled. When they traveled, they stayed at boarding houses. And so she's going to talk about that experience and how that contributed to the ideal middle-class home. So that's one of them. And another event we have coming up is called the Mechanics of Sound.
Yeah, the Mechanics of Sound, which would be very interesting.
Yeah, I think it should be, that will be a 2-day symposium of scholars, but it's certainly of interest and accessible to the general public. I encourage people to attend that. It's a range of topics around the development of high fidelity sound. You might recall as a child the hi-fi.
Yeah, of course.
So
oh my goodness.
That's you know,
that's
before the DVD,
oh, yeah,
right?
I
so
know, I'm with you.
and before the CD, right? No, not at all. I've heard about these things.
Yes, of course.
So high fidelity sound, jukeboxes, the rise of consumer the record industry, all these things will be documented at this upcoming event, and that's on November 29th and 30th.
Mechanics of Sound. They'll probably tell me to put a battery in here.
I
That's
think
probably
so.
the first thing. Okay. Good information. Thanks for joining us today, Terry.
Thank you.
All right. This hour's newsmaker has been Terry Snyder. She is the Deputy Director of Library Administration for the Hagley Museum and Library. I'm Carla Showell-Lee for Comcast Newsmakers, which is seen exclusively on Comcast Cable.